We are the Childhood Collective, and we have helped thousands of overwhelmed parents find joy and confidence in raising their child with ADHD. I'm Katie, a speech language pathologist.
And I'm Lori.
And I'm Mallory, and we're both child psychologists. We combine the science of ADHD with the compassion of moms and bring you practical tools you can start using today.
So hit subscribe and let's help your family shine with ADHD. One of the most common questions we hear from parents is, how do I prepare my child for an ADHD evaluation?
Yes, the decision to get your child evaluated for ADHD can be so overwhelming. So, you've probably sifted through advice from well meaning friends and family. Maybe you asked somebody that you know for a referral or found that evaluation center through your insurance company. And if you don't know where to start with finding someone to evaluate your child for ADHD, make sure to check out podcast episode 115, where we talk about all the different professionals who can diagnose kids with ADHD.
And once you have scheduled that evaluation, you've probably breathed a huge sigh of relief. Trust us, getting that evaluation scheduled is a wonderful first step towards supporting your child.
Yes. And of course, you may have questions about what to expect and what to bring to the evaluation. Just to let you know, each evaluator is going to be a little bit different in what they want from you or how to talk to your child about that. But because we do these evaluations all the time, we can give you a few general guidelines.
And so today we're going to talk about the most common questions that we hear from parents when they ask us, how do I prepare my child for an ADHD evaluation?
Absolutely. And one of the first questions that we hear from parents is, what should I do to prepare for the evaluation? So typically we advise parents to send to the person who's doing the evaluation, send them any previous evaluation reports or maybe school evaluations or school documents before the actual day of your child's evaluation. That gives the evaluator the opportunity to review any of those past evaluations, what the school has done, if the school has done evaluations, and it can be a helpful part of that evaluator planning for what assessments they're going to do that day based on what's already been done. We also advise parents to take notes on what their child is struggling with, where their child's strengths are. Write down topics that you want to be sure that you cover during the evaluation process. And maybe if you can think through some concrete examples or stories of some of your concerns, that really helps evaluators as well.
Totally, because I feel like when you get in that setting and the provider is asking all these questions, and it's like your mind really does go blank. And
Yes.
I know for me, after I left a recent evaluation, I immediately was like, oh, I should have said this and this and this. And so I ended up being that parent that like sends an email to follow up afterwards. But when you write it down in advance, it just gives you a minute to organize your thoughts and figure out what exactly is on your mind.
Yeah, and I can tell you from experience doing many evaluations with families, the ones that really come in feeling very confident that we covered everything were the ones that like either submitted with their intake papers like a list of bulleted points that they wanted to cover, or they brought it in with them and they were reviewing that. And I know at the end of our interview, they feel like, oh yes, that we covered everything that I wanted to cover. And the ones that don't have that, a lot of times are like, shoot, I don't know if I did. Can I email you afterwards? Because I feel like I forgot stuff. So again, having that list is really helpful.
Mm-hmm. And I think having those specific stories and examples too, if there are some that really stick out for you, helps the evaluator too. For example, if they're asking like, can your child follow multiple step directions, or how do routines go? If you've thought ahead of time through like concrete examples of how that typically looks in your home, again, you're better able to communicate kind of where the struggles are lying in your household, and it just helps you make sure you're giving them the full picture.
Yeah. And even if you don't, a lot of times parents will be like, well, I want to tell you something, but I don't know if this is like a symptom or a thing, or let the evaluator decide that. But if you are seeing something that maybe you're concerned about, even if you feel like some people might tell you it's normal or whatever, bring it up. It's not going to hurt. And you're going to
Mhm.
feel more confident in knowing that you brought everything up at that appointment that you might have concerns about versus like holding that in. Maybe it isn't a thing, but maybe it is. Maybe it actually is something that really helps that evaluator make a decision about what testing they need to do. Another thing when you're talking about preparing for the evaluation, I love it when parents bring me things like report cards to the appointment that have like teacher comments on them. So it might have grades and it might have those types of things that sometimes the teachers give comments each quarter that have information in them that's really helpful, like your child really struggled to pay attention but we're working on it, or these are their strengths but they're really struggling with being able to get their homework done. So again, those teacher comments on the report card are really helpful. If I'm doing an evaluation for like a learning disorder, whether it be in reading, writing, or math, when parents bring in work samples and show me, hey, I'm concerned about their writing. Here's some samples of it. That's so helpful to me. Or my child does this behavior. They're doing, they're flapping their arms and it's hard for me to describe that, but hey, I took a video of it. Would you like to see a video of them doing that? Oh my gosh, that's so immensely helpful to me. Or emails from the teachers. I had a mom send emails of a high schooler, and it was like, 20 different emails from teachers basically listing out in the emails like ADHD symptoms, so that was so helpful because that particular student didn't have like behavioral referrals that would maybe be on their like records or whatever, but teachers obviously had really significant concerns about their behaviors in the classroom and were really at a loss as to how to help them. If your child is seeing a speech pathologist or a therapist, ask them to write up a note of what they're seeing in their sessions, or things that they might have concerns about, or strengths or challenges. Even if it's just a paragraph, it's really helpful. Or if there was somebody who was referring your child, whether it be a teacher or a therapist, they're a really good person to get a note from because they're the ones who have concerns and you want to know what they're seeing that makes them concerned, if that makes sense. So those are just a few examples of, again, ways to kind of prepare for the evaluation. Another question that I get asked all the time is, should parents have their child take their ADHD medication on the day of the evaluation? Now, you might be saying, well, my child doesn't have a diagnosis of ADHD yet, so why would they be taking medication? But some of you maybe went to a pediatrician and the pediatrician recommended ADHD meds, but they didn't really give a diagnosis, right? This happens a lot where they maybe give the medication, they think maybe this is going on, but there's no definitive diagnosis. So the parents are coming for a full evaluation to figure out what is actually going on. I always tell parents, if your question in that evaluation process is, does my child actually have ADHD? You want that answered. Do not medicate your child because you want that evaluator to see your child and all of their symptoms during the evaluation. And they're maybe not going to be able to see that if they're on medication. So if the main question you're asking yourself is, does my child have ADHD? Don't have them on medication. That would be my general guideline. Now, if your child already has an established diagnosis of ADHD, maybe they got it when they were in elementary school and now they're in middle school and you're concerned about reading or writing or their social skills, but you feel pretty confident in that ADHD diagnosis, but you're more concerned about the academic piece, then I would say you could have them on their ADHD medication if that's not the main issue. That way, you're going to have a better understanding of what their intellectual skills, their academic skills are, their processing skills when they are on that medication, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. I think you're spot on. It depends on kind of what is the question that we're trying to answer with that evaluation. And this is, of course, this is a really important conversation that the parents want to be having with the actual evaluator.
Yeah.
But those are a great general guideline for, base it off of what question are you trying to answer. That'll help you know whether your child should take their ADHD meds that day or not.
Yes, same with speech. We would typically, for a speech and language evaluation and a child that's already on medication, we would have them take their meds because we want to see sort of like what that's looking like on a typical school day, for example. The same as like if a child had glasses, we would want them to wear their glasses, so that
Yeah.
for that piece, but obviously that's not a diagnostic evaluation where they're trying to really parse out some of the
Mhm.
signs of ADHD.
Over the past year, my oldest has really struggled with anxiety, especially at night. As soon as it was time for sleep, she'd be crying for me to stay and worrying about all the things. I was talking to another therapist about our bedtime battles, and she said the Zenimal, a screen free meditation device, had been a game changer for her daughter with ADHD and anxiety. I immediately purchased the Zenimal and can confidently say it was the best tool to help my daughter get better sleep. She was able to fall asleep an hour earlier using it.
Yes, it's actually really helped my kids to be able to calm their busy bodies at night.
What we love about the Zenimal is that it combines two of our favorite bedtime recommendations, using a relaxation strategy and removing screens from the bedroom.
The Zenimal is an adorable screen free turtle with 9 guided meditations your kids can choose from. And our absolute favorite part of the Zenimal is that every meditation ends with the most important message: you're a good kid.
To grab your own Zenimal and get your child and yourself some better sleep, head to zenimals.com and use our code TCC for a discount. You can also find the link in the show notes.
So, another question that we often get is, what should I bring to the evaluation? And, this is kind of depending again a little bit on where you're going for the evaluation, how long you're going to be there. But in general, definitely bring some water, some easy, non messy snacks. I feel like I say that, and then I think of
Non-messy.
all the kids that have come in my office and like absolutely destroyed a bag of goldfish on the floor. So I feel like any snack could actually get messy if we're honest, but something that's pretty easy, doesn't maybe require you to like heat any food up or anything like that. Definitely bringing, a few favorite toys or games to play with during breaks. Again, this is going to be so specific. Like if a child was coming to my office and they brought toys, I would not want the parent to give those to their child. I would want to kind of have those as for during breaks and that kind of thing. But you can talk that through. And then obviously, like I said, if they're wearing glasses or contacts, they need to have those. Another thing that can be really helpful, and I've actually started doing this for my kids' doctor's appointments, is having an iPad or a tablet or something like that that has headphones, because there's times when you just need to be able to talk to the evaluator, and every office is set up a little bit differently. So there may be a waiting area with people out there that can supervise your child. But if not, you want them to have an easy way to just take a brain break and have something fun and motivating to do. And that way you can have a few minutes just to talk with the evaluator. And that can be a game changer actually to kind of strategize and then at the end do a quick wrap up. And the last thing too is if you've written down, whether it's in your phone or written down on paper, some of those strengths and areas of need, and then any questions that you have, obviously make sure to bring those along, just to so that you kind of have that as a reference. So always just thinking, how can I make it easier for myself when I'm on the day of testing and it might feel a little chaotic? What could happen? What might I need? And those are just a few of the things that you'd want to bring with you.
Yeah, and along the same lines of like bringing toys or fun things, I definitely have some kids that are younger that bring a stuffy that they love, and they set their stuffy up like right next to them on the chair, and that's totally okay, for me anyway. And sometimes it makes them feel comfortable when they're kind of in a new environment and they're not feeling totally safe yet. Or even if they have fidgets that they use at school, like some of my kids will come in with poppets or, a fidget that they love that really helps them to regulate. So if your child has something like that, that's great as well.
Absolutely. And I think that we've given parents some great ideas of how to prepare themselves and show up for the appointment. But another common question that we get from parents is, what should I say to my child to prepare my child for an ADHD evaluation? And this is a really great question. And I think all parents wonder this if they're headed into an evaluation. And I think it's most important to remember that kids pick up on how we are feeling as parents. And it's really important to stay as calm and as positive as possible. And I used to, when I was still in private practice, I would use the chicken pot pie example. And what I mean by that is, let's say you call a family meeting. All right, everyone, it's family meeting time. I need everyone to come sit around the table. I have something to talk about. Tonight for dinner, we're having chicken pot pie. Oh my gosh, your kids are going to be like, chicken pot pie? No, not
No.
chicken pot pie.
I
The
even
way
got
you
nervous for you. I was like, oh no. And I love chicken pot pie.
I know. I'm sitting there like, what do you put in your chicken
Yeah,
pot
yeah.
pie? Because it's
No,
clearly not what I would put in mine.
It's got to be
No,
fish.
it's the way I've delivered the message, right? I've called a family meeting. I'm talking really slowly and I'm a little bit nervous to share this message with you. And it's that we're having chicken pot pie. And so I use this example just to illustrate a point. Being mindful of the way that you're communicating the message to your child is going to impact the way they receive that message. So if we're speaking about it positively and calmly, they're likely to receive that message in that way. In terms of what you actually want to tell your child, the actual message that you're delivering calmly and positively, we usually tell kids that you're going to go play some games. You might look at some books. You might do some puzzles, maybe some memory activities. The evaluator might just have some questions for you about your life, what things are going well, what's a challenge. We often tell kids that the goal of the evaluation is to figure out how their brain learns best, because this can help us as parents, as educators, as teachers to know the best way to teach them. So we're kind of just trying to figure out the way your brain works, how it likes to learn. I think it's also totally appropriate to ask the evaluator in advance if they have any advice on how to share this information. Their evaluation process might look a little bit different, or they may have a way that they prefer parents share the information with their child just to set them up for success. And of course, the evaluator will also have answers for you about how long those appointments tend to take, what their specific appointment will look like. And that will just help you give your child a little bit more logistical information about what they can expect of their day.
Whenever I would do an evaluation, I would always start with, we all have things that we're really good at. That would be like my opening line. And then I would say something that I'm good at. And I would ask the kid, like, what are you good at? And 9 times out of 10, they would just light right up. Like, I'm really good at soccer, or I do the best drawings. And we would start to talk about that. And it kind of just, they weren't sure what was going to happen. That wasn't what they were expecting. So as a parent, you can do that too. We all have things that we're good at. Like, you're so good at comforting your sister when she's sad, or kicking the soccer ball, or whatever it is. And then we all have things that are hard for us too. And our goal for today is to just figure out what's easy, what you're really good at. And if anything is hard, our goal is to make it easier. So that was always my little spiel. And I feel like parents could adopt that too, because it really just sets the tone of like, we're not here because you're broken. We're not here to fix something. We're here to figure out how your brain works. And it can be a really positive kind of way to describe it.
Yeah. And I think, for some parents out there, maybe your child's going to be highly resistant to the testing process. And this is definitely something that I come across where parents are like, we've done this before and they've refused. You see maybe your child really does struggle with a lot of defiance around doing, reading and writing tasks, or maybe they shut down when you ask them to talk about their emotions, or they're just really highly resistant to some of those things. If that's the case, again, have a conversation with the evaluator. But I think talking with your child too about, I know this is really hard for you. And I know that this is a hard process, and I know, it's not your favorite thing to do, but I really want, I'm really proud of you for taking this step, and we're going to do something really, really fun afterwards. So really even setting up the testing day to have something extremely motivating for your child. Like some parents will be like, we're going to go out and get a new Lego kit that day, or something really, I'm going to take you to, your favorite jump park afterwards, or we're going to go have a special lunch with, and you get to pick out the place. So doing something and picking something out with them to really show like how proud you are of them for doing this work. And it's hard, but to try and set them up with for success, and talking with the evaluator about how they can use rewards too within the testing session to kind of keep them motivated is really important.
That's such a great point. And I will say, I've been doing testing for like 12 years, and it works so much better when you set up your reward in advance. Once you get to the
Yes.
middle of the testing and the child is starting to get stressed or shut down, that
Yeah.
is a really tough time to be like, I'll get you a smoothie. Like that tends to
Yes.
be really challenging. And so
Yeah.
I know that, at that point you're like, we need to get this testing done, whatever it takes, and
Yeah.
no judgment. But that's a really good point. If we can set it up in advance, everybody knows the expectation. And I would hear parents say that, and I would say to the kid like, oh, let's get this done so you can go meet grandma for lunch or whatever. And that was just, I can kind of, fit that into what I was saying too. And I think that's really helpful, especially when you kind of like think it out in advance.
Yeah. And I've been doing this many, many years, and I've had every situation under the sun, and had some really challenging situations where other evaluators had not been successful in testing kids. And I think the success comes from really working with parents closely, and the kids closely, to kind of establish those rewards and things that are fun for them, and take the time to go through that process and establish a rapport. Even as a parent, telling the evaluator, like I had some parents who were really awesome and were like, my child's like super into dogs. So like if you can talk about dogs or bring that up, like that's going to help develop rapport with them, so there's so many ways to kind of do that, so that again, your child is just going to have more success through that process. So let's talk about the key takeaway here. Again, it's really important to put in that little bit of work ahead of time to prepare yourself and your child for the ADHD evaluation. A little preparation will ease any stress that your child might have about the process, and also give you a lot of confidence in the results that you're getting.
Thanks for listening to Shining with ADHD by your hosts, Lori, Katie, and Mallory of the Childhood Collective. If you enjoyed this episode, please like this video and hit subscribe so you can be the first to know when a new episode airs.
If you are looking for links and resources mentioned in this episode, you can always find those in the show notes. See you next time.